I'm Andra Russek from Scheinbaum and Russek, and here on behalf of AIPAD. And as many of you know, AIPAD is dedicated to creating and maintaining high standards in the business of exhibiting, buying, and selling photographic art. With that in mind, one of the things that we are most well known for is the photography show that we do in April, which will be happening again at the Park Avenue Armory, where we were last year as our big return, and now we're going to be returning one more time. So I hope you'll all be joining us there. We're very excited. Other AIPAD news, this year for the first time ever, we have done a AIPAD gift guide, which is pretty lovely and amazing, and has a selection of photographs ranging from a few $100s all the way up over 100,000 that you can look at and give gifts to your family and friends this year. In our chat, we'll be doing a link to the gift guide if you'd like to see it. There's some beautiful work there just to look at and enjoy, so please take a peek and check it out. AIPAD Talks, we are dedicated to presenting our community with talks on various subjects on photography, contemporary photography, the history of photography, artists, publications, and all of those things. This talk is part of a new series that we've started called AIPAD Talks Depth of Field Member Presentations, in which artists from AIPAD Member Galleries present their work and art making process. And that is what this talk is today with Sarah Sense, who's having a show right now at Bruce Silverstein Gallery. We are very thrilled to have both Bruce here and Sarah here to talk about the work and to show us what's going on at the gallery right now. I will let all of you know that this talk is being recorded. It will be available in a few days on the AIPAD website if you'd like to revisit it. And after the talk is done, after Sarah's done and Bruce is done, I will open this up for chat and questions. Please put your questions in the Q&A. I will read them to Sarah and Bruce. They will answer them as we go along. I want to thank you all for joining us. It's really a pleasure to have you here. And now I'm going to hand this over to Bruce, who is going to introduce Sarah and the show at the gallery. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Andra. And a big thank you to Lydia and Irene and AIPAD for providing us with this forum. I'm pleased to be here and thank everybody for joining us today. Before I begin, I wanted to let you all know that while the show is scheduled to end this Saturday, it will remain on the walls until December 7th. So if by chance you have not had a pleasure to view Sarah's work in person, I urge you to do so, as the works really must be seen in the flesh to appreciate their detail, texture, color, and impressive scale. In addition, I want to thank Sarah publicly for giving us here at the gallery the opportunity to learn and grow from knowing her and her work. It has been an honor, a challenge, and a heavy obligation to somehow impart upon the viewers the aesthetic, historical, and emotional significance of these works, which really can only be adequately expressed by someone with Sarah's background and experience. So thank you, Sarah. We are lucky to be here today for this presentation. Sarah is a contemporary Indigenous artist of Chitimacha and Choctaw heritage. Her work weaves together her family's traditions, her own contemporary photographs, and historical documents to explore identity, memory, and healing across generations. Her latest series, I Want to Hold You Longer, currently on view at the gallery, takes on the layered history of indigenous basket making and its place in museum collections. Sarah combines her photographs of ancestral landscapes with colonial maps and documents from archives like the British Library and the American Antiquarian Society. These works will bring together two histories, one of survival and resilience and another of marginalization and dispossession. The series is deeply personal for her. Sarah describes the powerful experience of holding Chitimacha baskets in museum collections and feeling connected to her ancestors, including her great-grandmother and great-aunt, who were both weavers. Her work asks us to reconsider how we understand these artifacts, not as static objects, but as living links between the past and present with the potential for healing. Through her art, Sarah encourages us to confront complex histories and consider how we can honor and carry forward these traditions. Once again, thank you for joining us, and without further delay, I give you over to Sarah.
Thank you, Bruce. Thank you, Millie. I appreciate you both so much. I am so grateful that I get to be here, and I know I wouldn't be here right now with AIPAD if it wasn't for you. So thank you. Thank you for hosting this exhibition and for letting me, I don't know, explore this idea of holding baskets and implementing other traditional baskets into a catalog and into the space. And I know it was, they were new and different ideas. And I just appreciate that everyone at the gallery was open to my ideas, and we made it happen together. So I appreciate that.
Thank you, Sue.
Thank you, AIPAD, for this opportunity, and thank you everybody who's taken time to be here. I know that life is very busy, so this hour of your time means a lot to me. I also just want to thank some people who are really instrumental in this project. The curators who invited me to hold the baskets in their archives: Dare Turner at the Brooklyn Museum, Laura Allen at the Montclair Art Museum, Nancy Burns at the Worcester Art Museum. There are 4 collectors who shared essays and baskets. Daniel Usner, who is a who contributed a historical essay on Chitimacha basket weaving of the early 20th century. Melissa Darden for contributing images of her basket. Melissa is a traditional Chitimacha basket weaver. She's also the chairperson of our Chitimacha Tribe in Louisiana. Claire Green Young, a Choctaw curator who wrote an essay on Choctaw weaving, allotment land, family, and community. Evelyn Steele, a traditional Choctaw weaver who made a basket for the exhibition, which is in the gallery. And Claire writes about what that means for Evelyn to create a basket and have it alongside my work. Most of the landscapes for this new body of work are from photo shoots this year in 2024. So California was with my husband and my boys. Louisiana is with my dear friends, Tasia and Poopy, and their boys and our boys out on a boat in the Bayou Teche and the Atchafalaya Basin. Photos of Broken Bow, Oklahoma are with my husband, my kids, cousin Fred, my Aunt Melanie, and also my cousin Jeff. And there are 2 people who I want to acknowledge who really put in some time with me to talk me through what I was doing as I was just searching and looking for any sort of problems with going into the archive, accessing the archive, bringing anything from the archive forward. It's always a sensitive subject and a sensitive place to be. So I want to thank Kim Walden for her time and talking with me about what that means, and also Greg Hill. Thank you for listening and giving thoughtful feedback. All of these people have helped me shape the project, and I'm very grateful for your time. I'm also grateful for this opportunity to share this slideshow. I'm going to do a screen share now. Can everybody see that okay? Can everybody see my
You're looking
slideshow?
good to me. I think you're
Okay.
ready to go, Sarah. Thank you.
Fantastic. So this is a basket from a Chitimacha basket from traditional weaver John Paul Darden. My first time going back to the reservation was in my adolescent years. And I think this is a really important part of understanding the work that I'm making and the weavings that I'm doing in relation to my experience with being reconnected to my community. After having acquired this basket from John Paul Darden, I asked for permission from our then chairman, Al LeBlanc, to practice weaving, knowing that I wouldn't be doing it with traditional river cane, but rather with another type of material. However, at this time, I wasn't sure what that material was going to be. With his blessing, I went from Louisiana back to New York, where I was a graduate student at Parsons, and I wove a photo using these images that I had taken from my time on the reservation. I think it's important to note that while I was on the reservation, it was specifically to do community service through a scholarship payback program. Most of my time there was spent with the youth during the summers. And also I painted 2 murals in the preschool and in the K through 8th school. So this first image that you see on the upper left, Native Tan, was a tanning salon that was on the reservation. And I think that my brother and I in particular, we just saw the irony and the labeling of this little trailer on the reservation. Being from California, where there is a lot of like tanning and tanning salons, we just had a little giggle. And again, it was just an ironic like image for us. So I photographed it. And when I went home after that trip, I printed that image using 3 different colors. So one with red, one with yellow, and then a black and white. And that was to imitate these colors in the basket. So that's my first weaving that I did, that Native Tan, that's from 2004. And then this other landscape is another, that's by Utesh. This is also from the reservation. So then I turned that landscape into a small tray. This is also 2004. After graduate school, I was the director and curator of the American Indian Community House Gallery. During this time, there were 2 important things that happened. One was that the gallery was moving from 708 Broadway, which is in the NYU district, down to Lower Manhattan. The gallery had been open for 30 years. And so there's this huge collection of artist files, exhibition files, that basically reflected a Native American New York art movement. And I went through with about a staff of 5 people, all of these files and organized them and cataloged them so that we could maintain the integrity of that history of the gallery and move it carefully to Lower Manhattan. This became like a whole education that was separate from my more like academic educations. And I think it was just as important. Also during that time when we were running the exhibitions, we had, of course, visitors coming in. A lot of Native communities and friends would come to see the shows and share their work with me. And that included also artists and Indigenous community members from South America. So after the community house, I became really interested in this idea that we could go into like Central and South America and learn more about Indigenous art from these other parts of the Western Hemisphere. So here on the upper left, this is in Copan Ruin. This is Ignacia Ramos, and under that is Roberto Mamani from La Paz, Bolivia. These 2 artists gave me interviews along with 60 other artists. So I had 62 artist interviews from Canada all the way to Chile, going through 12 different countries. Most of that travel was by bus. And while I was traveling and meeting with artists in their community, I was also photographing the landscape. So this landscape here on the right is Bolivia. It's the Salt Flats. And the one with the green trees and the mountainscape, that's in Chile, northern Patagonia, about an hour from Valdivia, Chile. I should say this exhibition, Weaving the Americas, was then debuted at a contemporary museum in Valdivia, Chile, after I finished my field search and research. This is what the work looked like. I did 5 of these pieces. This is 70 inches by 94 inches. So they're quite large. After Weaving the Americas, my research in Central America, and also just, constantly going back to Louisiana and considering the community, my community in Louisiana, my family history, but also how this movement of water around the Gulf of Mexico, from Florida, Louisiana, down the Yucatan Peninsula into Honduras and Belize, and then opening up again into the Caribbean, how water was moving culture and trade. And I just became really interested in what kind of art forms were coming out of the Caribbean, because there's a whole different influence there from Africa and also from England because of that triangle of enslavement. I think it is also important to say that there were Chitimachas who were enslaved from that space between New Orleans, the Caribbean, Africa, and then Bristol was a major slave hub. Bristol is where this exhibition was debuted. This image here on the right is me with a weaver in Chiang Rai. The image on the left is Mr. Supan in Lampang, Thailand. I think it's important to know that Mr. Supan made handmade bamboo paper for me for this exhibition called Weaving Water. The lower right image is a Dalong in Indonesia, which is this is a Indigenous Polynesian art form of puppetry. And this is what the weaving waterworks looked like. So again, it's the landscapes being woven, this time through circular forms of that bamboo paper that Mr. Supan had made for me. And the way he described this round circular paper is that the image on the right, that darker gray, he said is the back of the moon, and the lighter gray color that you can see on the left is the front of the moon. So it's the moon shadow, and then it's the moon being hit by the sun. So everything that he was making was very like grounded with Buddhist philosophies, and also the way that he would prepare the paper. He lived in a bamboo forest. He was totally connected to the land. This was a part of his tradition, and he was wonderful to work with. So every piece from Weaving Water is laid on that bamboo paper, and then has a circular form woven into it. When my grandma Chili, who's Choctaw, went to a assisted living home, I was there to help her move out of her home. And she gifted me this Choctaw basket on the left and also this mat on the right. The mat on the right is the sun and star pattern. These two baskets, I don't know who made them, but I just want to point out that one of the basket makers that my grandma Chili would collect from was Eveline Steele. Eveline is the basket maker who made the basket for the exhibition at Bruce Silverstein's gallery right now. While Eveline was making the basket for the exhibition, she sent a message to Claire Young, who then sent it to me, that said, while she was making the basket, a postcard from my grandmother, from Grandma Chili, had shown up in her home. And she sent that image to Claire, who then sent it to me, which was really beautiful. Just that connectivity of, generations working together and sharing. When I got these baskets from my grandma, it was 2012, and it was just a year before I'd met my husband in England. I did meet my husband in England during the Weaving Water exhibition, and in Bristol, England. And a lot of my work has these really personal elements, and I think one of the more personal elements is in this body of work, and the body of work that comes after this. So this is a part of the Choctaw-Irish relation. So when moving to England, Joe and I had to first move to Ireland to sort out my immigration. And while I was in Ireland, I became pregnant with my oldest son, Archie. And one of the reasons why we chose Ireland is because I really wanted to research the story of the Choctaw-Irish relationship. So in the mid 1900s, the Choctaw heard of the potato famine and what was happening with the British Empire and their control over land and people in Ireland. And having had just experienced the Trail of Tears, the Choctaw Nation gathered money and sent it to Ireland. This legend, this bond is very important and relevant to both Ireland and also to the Choctaw Nation. This last year, I went and was part of the Choctaw Irish Friendship Festival. This cross that you can see on the right is a Choctaw memorial. If you follow that road, I don't know if you can see my cursor, but if you follow this road down around the lake here, this is where Joe and I lived. This is the Dew Loch, which is a, of course, lake named that is called Dew. There's a story of a tragedy that happens there during the potato famine, where people from Lewisburg walked on what is now a road. It was a trail. They walked to the Delphi Lodge asking for money and medicine. They weren't allowed into the lodge. They were turned away. So my husband and I went to that lodge to learn about that story. And what ended up happening was that the manager of the Delphi Lodge offered Joe a job as a chef. So we ended up moving into the Delphi Lodge, and all of the work that I made was about this story of that exchange. So it was looking at the Trail of Tears and also the Dew Loch tragedy, but not just the Dew Loch tragedy, the whole tragedy that happened in Ireland. There are museums and different places to visit, which we just spent a lot of time trying to educate ourselves. And of course, Joe also was being educated. He didn't learn about what had happened in the potato famine with his British education. This is what the pieces looked like. That image on the lower left is my grandmother holding my mom on after she was born on the third day of life. And that piece I finished just the same week my grandmother passed away. And the last time I talked to her, I was talking to her on the phone on my mom's birthday. And I said to her, I just finished this piece of you and mom. This whole body of work, you can see, I don't know if you can see it in this image, but there's writing. It's my grandmother's stories. She kept a memoir at the end of her life. She was recording her experiences and gave me she had typed up her memoirs and gave them to me, knowing that I was going to use them in this work. So everything was it's a very like family-based, community-based project. This image on the right is my grandma Chili's father. I can tell you a little bit about that process. So that's a black and white print. I think it's black and white. And then there's an image of water on rice paper that is waxed. And then I remove the wax so it becomes transparent. And then that's laid over that photograph. So that's why you can see his reflection like in the water. And over here, you can see the sun and star pattern on the upper left. And you probably can't see it, but underneath grandma in the grandma image, that's her writing is written on the back of the wax paper and then turned over so that you can't see the words. She asked me in one of our last conversations, she said, don't write the sad stories. And I was meant to talk to her on the day that she passed away. It was a Monday, and we were scheduled to talk, and she passed away early in the morning, but I was going to ask her if it was okay if I wrote, what stories she didn't want me to write. So what I ended up doing is with all of the stories that were sad, I wove through. So if you see in this piece here, this section that has on the image on the right, that section that has a weaving through it, that's a sad period in her life that I covered. This is going from all of my work definitely flows from one images like are carried over into the next. This is a Remember series. This is very much relating to my experience of having a baby in Ireland and thinking about what that meant. If it's okay, I'm gonna read the poem that is written through these pieces. The Remember series is images of images of archives in Germany. My father's father is German. I did go to Krefelds and found family images of our family homes, as well as birth certificates of family members. And so this calligraphy that you can see on the left, it's old German calligraphy of an archive that I photographed in Krefelds. The waterfall next to it is a waterfall that I believe is the only family portrait that I can find of my grandfather with my great-grandparents in Germany before they moved to New York. And then, of course, above that is an image of a seascape in Ireland in Connemara. Does water have memory, like the trees that surround it? Can water remember the roots that drank it or the lungs that inhaled it? Can water remember the ancestors the way land holds us in shallow graves? I can feel the presence when close to the calm lake, rushing river, or thunderous ocean. Bring me the calm and violent memories. Remind me of the past so that I don't forget that I am but a speck of dust. The new life that derives from me is my future and the future of this world. My selflessness today will grow this baby boy, and I will be a vessel for him, a lifeline of new beginnings and hope. Let the rain fall on the water and remind us of the cycle of life. He may not remember today or yesterday, but he will always know that he is connected to me, to this land, and to this water. And this is really about being a mother, but also being connected to land and that task of teaching that to your children. And the same way that I've learned so much from my grandmother and my mother, and now being a mother. So I think that's what really this work is about. Again, in this lower left-hand corner, you can see the handwriting. And that's again, my grandma Chili's handwriting. Excuse me, it's my handwriting of my grandma Chili's memoirs, her stories. And I should say that those stories are about what it was like to grow up in Oklahoma, what it was like to grow up in Broken Bow, which becomes increasingly important in a series that I did last year. This is my first body of work that I did for Bruce Silverstein. This is called Power Lines, and this whole body of work is based on a research project that I did at the British Library. I became a visiting fellow at the library in 2019. I was asked to put together an exhibition proposal, which I worked on very closely with the then director of the Eccles Center, which is the American Studies Department. And Phil Hartman and I put together basically a magazine of a proposal. And this all came crashing down with COVID. And exhibition calendars closed, and I was totally devastated. I thought that was the end of my career in some ways. I don't know if there are any other artists on here right now, if you can recall what that felt like to have all the shows closed, your contracts canceled. I was totally devastated. And I think this is where Bruce came into the picture. And I was totally thrilled to have an opportunity to go back and revisit this research. And the title that I came up with for the British Library in London was Power Lines. So I did go back to London and I met with the new director and I said, if you guys want this show still, I can do this for you. But if you don't, I'm going to do this show in New York. And they said, do it in New York, and you're always a fellow here. So I was, of course, a little disappointed, but I took that as an opportunity to take all the research and make these pieces. So each piece has a different story based on a different map that I was looking at and researching at the library. The research was, I didn't make any work, I think in 2019, it was all research and writing. This piece on the top, so the full image is on the left and the details are on the right. That's a part of the Victoria Albert Museum now in London, which is really important and special to me. Here you can see some images of people. On the left is my sister shooting a gun toward Sitting Bull and Buffalo Bill. On the right is me dressed as the cowgirl, which is one of my personas, laying down. And then of course the hide is woven over, which has, a lot of layered implications. And below is Bayou Teche. So lots of layers of maps and imagery. I would like to just read something for this. Furthering my American experience, I grew up in the United States without knowing my own Native community until my adolescent years, which had a profound impact on my identity. The cowgirl and Indian princess plays with these complicated feelings, becoming more emotionally evoking when woven into Hollywood film posters. Weaving such identity politics through ancestral land then ties the figure to place. Adding the maps through the landscapes and figures suggests memory that is bound to blood and water, but manipulated with popular culture's interpretation of Native identity. The archives of both documents and maps act as evidence to murder and genocide, while the Hollywood imagery expresses an industry's power play on historical trauma to falsify actualities that continue to persist in memory. Like blood pulsing through our bodies or cypress tree roots drinking water from the bayou, the memory persists. Interweaving the personas with Louisiana landscape of Chitimacha ancestral lands ties current contemporary life and environment, conceptually closing a gap between historical and contemporary time, much like the memory. This last year in 2023, I was asked by the Choctaw Nation to make new pieces for a hotel renovation. And to also have my work reproduced in hundreds of hotel rooms. I always like to point out that I don't do this for hotels. This was very specifically for my community. And it was under the agreement for me was that I wanted to use maps that were with the Choctaw Cultural Center. This is my first time working with and meeting Claire Green Young, and which is a really special relationship to me. And she shared with me these maps. So you can see on the right, the McCurtain County of Oklahoma. This is an allotment map. There's 42 of them that were shared with me. We got all the permissions from the nation to work with them. On the lower left-hand corner, my now assistant, Charlie Farrell, went with me to the Missouri Historical Society in St. Louis, Missouri, where we had access to the original journals of Lewis and Clark. That's my photograph of a Lewis and Clark journal. And above that is a photo shoot I did with Fred Bray at Broken Bow. So this is what the works look like. This is what I made for the Choctaw Nation for the hotel. You can see there the landscapes of Broken Bow with the allotment maps and also the Lewis and Clark maps. So just looking at the colonizing of the land, the colonizing of the people through land structures, giving land only to then take it away, which brings me to the next Tanushi work. This is just for size, so you can see the size of the works and a bit of the process. On the image on the left, you can see the strips with the yellow maps. So everything is hand cut and then hand woven. And then on the lower right, you can see I'm doing the, I'm attaching it to the board. And then my husband makes all of the frames. Well, we do it together. He makes the frames and we frame together. This piece on the right is with the Portland Art Museum, which I'm very proud of. And these pieces, this middle piece, the Rijksmuseum acquired, and these were at Paris Photo 2023. So here, I think the extra layer to this Hanushi work, Hanushi meaning trail, referencing the Trail of Tears, is that these maps in 2023, I went back to London to the British Library and found these oil maps. So if you look at the central image at the bottom, oil map of Oklahoma, this is from the 1920s, I believe. And it's about, it's in 5 different languages, and it's basically giving information about where the oil is. So as many of you may know, that allotment land in Oklahoma that was given to Native nations after forced removal from ancestral homelands. Once there was discovery of that they were resource rich with oil, they were then removing those same Native communities from that land. And so that map, that again, those colonial maps that I find at the British Library are just another part of that, of those stories. That brings me to the current work. This is, I Want to Hold You Longer. This summer, I challenged myself with making work that was more sculptural. I really wanted things to lift off of the page. I had been working with thread on paper previously, particularly with the Remember series in 2016. So I knew I would be like sewing and tying down. I wasn't expecting the braiding that kind of happened naturally, and the twisting. So in this body of work, I am referring to 12 baskets in 3 different institutions: the Brooklyn Museum, the Worcester Museum, and the Montclair Art Museum. So this is called Brooklyn Alligator. This basket here lives at the Brooklyn Museum. And I want to point out, I believe that this is on exhibition right now, this particular basket, in a show that Dare Turner has curated. So you can see this alligator entrail pattern is here in the smaller study. And then it's again in this larger piece. The large pieces are 40 inches by 60 inches. The smaller pieces are just about 24 inches by 24 inches. This one is a Montclair basket. This is Montclair mouse, and it's referencing the mouse track pattern. And that small, that little tiny basket is a part of a nesting baskets that are not a series, but sorry, 12 baskets that all nest into one another. 6 of these baskets are at the Montclair Art Museum. The other 6 are somewhere else. We think we might know where they are, but that maybe is my next project, find the rest of them. This is the second smallest of that nesting collection. This middle piece, where you can see that the mouse track, and then also on the large piece, you can see the mouse track. This middle piece with the braiding, that's the first time I braided the photographs. Just for technical information, that's rice paper that is waxed. And then I wove it through bamboo paper, and I then braided the rice, the waxed rice paper, and folded it over the bamboo print. The bamboo print has a photograph of the redwood forest in the north coast, so like very near to the Oregon border. This was taken in January last year. There was a really beautiful like sun rays coming through the forest. And this piece to me represents the matriarch and being connected to each other and being connected to the land. And I see these as women's braids and heads being braided together. And then that's the bayou going straight through the head. This basket is from the Worcester Art Museum. There's 2 baskets at that museum. I should say this piece here is going, the piece on the right is going to the Worcester Art Museum. And this is bear's earring. All of these patterns are new patterns for me. I learned the titles, the names of the patterns from Melissa Darden. She spent time with me in April reviewing the pattern names. They were really challenging. I just want to go back. This is the most challenging pattern I've ever done. Took me a really long time to just memorize that that numerical sequence. Because I can't even, I don't know if I can ever do it again. It was so hard. This is dots. This is another piece at Montclair, another basket at Montclair, and Montclair has acquired this larger one. So I'm super proud of this body of work, and thank you, Bruce, for hosting the exhibition. And I'm so excited. It's up till December 7th. That's amazing. Thank you.
Yes. We wanted to give people an opportunity, those people who hadn't seen it, an opportunity to come in, because obviously the work is, even when you're looking at it on the screen, it just does not read in a way that it does personally. And I know that from firsthand, because I cannot tell you how absolutely blown away we were when we received the work for this show, because you could not imagine it from the JPEGs that you had shown us. And also I just wanted to say how remarkable it has been to witness your evolution in the short time that we've been, working together. The difference between the works in this show and what was in Power Lines, which was an extraordinary show, but for these works, there's something else. For me, I see an incredible development as an artist. And I look at some of these pieces that you put on the screen, and I'm thinking about some of those kind of lines that become almost, they're abstract. And if you can go back to one of the past images, maybe the Montclair piece, for example. Oops. Lost it there. Sorry to put you on the spot here.
That's okay.
Yeah. What I'm wondering is, where does the reference to the basket end and your kind of creative input begin, in a sense? Because if you look at these overlays, these sculptural overlays, yes, they're referencing a basket, but they're also doing a lot more. They're very abstract. They're almost unlike the earlier work, they're not structured. They're free. And, I see it as kind of you're almost drawing with these curves. And I'd like to know a little bit more about how these, what were you thinking when you were making these gestures with paper?
Sure. I think that's a really accurate way to describe it. And I have one in here, but I'll leave it there. I think that I was definitely thinking about the basket that is in the archive, like being free, and what that meant. So while I was, and I know I've told you and Millie this, and my family knows this, I really went into this, felt like a long, deep meditation for several weeks to make the work, because I really wanted to be alone, apart from my husband and my sons. I really wanted to be alone and stay in that thought of what it meant to hold a basket in an archive, knowing that the person who made the basket is a part of my ancestry, and the maker could be my great great grandmother. So that I'm like holding something that family held. And then to have the story of how that basket ended up there, like these weavers that were weaving baskets at the turn of the 20th century, They were, there's two perspectives. One is that they saved community and they saved basket weaving. They created a sovereign nation for Chitimacha. And the other side is that they were in a way slave driven. There's two perspectives, and I think I really like listened to all of these perspectives, and I wanted to not disregard any of it. I wanted to make work that really encompassed all of these feelings, because they're all legitimate feelings. When you're talking to community, everybody is going to have coming at these stories with a different mindset, with a different bloodline, that we all are going to go back and trace back to these women in some way. So it's very fair and real to have strong emotions about it. And so I was careful to acknowledge what was shared with me. And mostly what I was getting at when I was doing the braiding and the twisting and the opening up of the weaving and tying it down, but loosening it up all at the same time, was that I wanted to give those weavers space to be free. And the letters that were exchanged between the McElhinney family and the weavers, the McElhinney heiresses that were commissioning these baskets that are in all of these institutions were very much like, make sure it's perfect. Make sure you have the younger Chitimacha women with you to learn what you're doing. I need 12. I need it by this date. Are you almost done? And the response from Christine Paul, who's the main writer of the handwritten letters for these commissions, these exchanges, she would write down, I lost that their family is being murdered, they're losing land, they're in huge trouble. And the response was, but we still need, I'm so sorry. When will we have this basket? And it's this like, it's just such a clear, it paints such a clear picture to me of the difficulty that was going on. And the fact that the women never stopped. They never like laid down to just give it up. They kept fighting. They fought for community. They fought for each other. They fought for their men, their sons, their daughters. And that's what the emotion that I'm trying to put into this work. And also to acknowledge very much, it was so important that Melissa was okay with what I was doing, because she is not only the chairperson of our tribe, she's also she's a traditional weaver, and that's where all the respect goes, is to our traditional weavers, our traditional Choctaw weavers and our traditional Chitimacha weavers. I'm just commenting on it, and I want my comments on it, or me sharing these stories, to be as respectful as possible. And this time, you know what, it had to be about healing, and it had to be about not like that idea that like generational trauma is passed backwards. I started to think about trauma being here, and maybe we bend time this way, and I meet at the top and we do generational healing. So if I'm holding a basket, it's like time travel, I guess, like emotional time travel. Can you heal? Can you give gratitude to someone from the past? And I think that you can.
Thank you for that. Andra, unless you have other questions, I can continue to this dialogue.
Yeah, let me open it up just in case. If anyone has any questions, please write them in the Q&A for Sarah and Bruce. And I also want to let everybody know that right now in the chat, which should have gone out to everyone, I'm putting up a link to the viewing room for the show, and also a press release and catalog for the exhibition as well. So if anyone is interested in looking at those, there are links available, so you can go and see more of the work. This work is amazing, so in depth, and the thought behind it is really kind of, it's a whole other story that goes along with the work, which is just incredible to me. But if there are any questions, please write them in. I see one right now. What was the most rewarding part of creating this series?
Oh, thank you. think I think there's a lot of little. I think the triumphs are really small here and there. I think um, I'm really sensitive about this work. I'm hypersensitive, and I think it's because it's community based. And when I said to my husband last night, um, when I left and moved to Central and South America and started taking Spanish classes and started this research of Indigenous artists, I think a lot of that was just, when you're working with community, it's so hard to please everybody. And not that you have to please everybody, but you want to be as respectful as possible. And there's so much emotion because it's family based, it's blood based. And so I think that's a hard question for me because I see this more of like a labor of love, and reading those letters and kind of like in a way living through that trauma a bit in my studio. And then you can't avoid like generational trauma, right? You can't avoid that coming through. And I think that that's really hard when you're talking about blood and ancestry and a grandmother and a great grandmother and a great great grandmother and a grandfather. And it's so loaded, right? It's loaded for my aunts, it's loaded for my cousins, it's loaded for my mom and my sister. And so I think for that reason, I just still see it as a labor of love, not as like a reward.
So I'm gonna do one more question, and then I do think we might need to wrap up. But having just exhibited in Paris, because your work was just on display again in Paris Photo, and now in New York, have you found the international response to be different than the domestic one?
I think this is a good time to highlight what Bruce has done for my career. And I think that having my work in Paris is so incredible. And last year, I got to spend time with people from the Victoria Albert Museum. This year, I got to spend time with the Rijksmuseum. And I don't think I would have had those opportunities had my work not been brought to Paris. So um, yeah, it's been incredible. When Bruce contacted me, I'd been doing this weaving and doing my practice for 20 years. And it was a lot I don't know if there's other contemporary Native artists on this call, but I think that we together can like remember how much work, how much community um, exhibitions there were, and just leaning on each other and working when there wasn't any money in it, and just scraping it together and making it happen. At least that's what it was like for me. So it's nice to be able to have these shows and for people to see them and to be invited into these spaces. It means everything to me. I guess that's my biggest reward.
Well, I think we have time for one more maybe, because I like this. I want to try to get everyone in here first. We have a comment. Great job, Sarah. We at Chitimacha are proud of your work and what it's done to enhance knowledge of our tribe and our ancestors' plight. So I just want you to know that there's
Thank you.
someone on here saying that to you. And then this question is, thank you again to you and Bruce for being here. Sarah, could you talk a little bit more about how you chose which photographs you ended up using for the weaving? And does the pattern guide the choice of photographs? Does the photograph have an impact on how the weaving appears, etc.?
Absolutely. I think for the studies, so if you get to see the show or the beautiful online things that Millie has put together, I should state for those of you who don't know Millie's the director of Bruce Silverstein Gallery, and she does a really wonderful job with organizing everything online. So even if you can't see the show, you can view it. I mean, if you can't see it in person, can view it online. The studies, so from the 12 baskets, there's 12 studies, and then there's the 12 larger pieces. So that's how I was honoring each basket, right? So the studies, after doing this photo shoot in the north coast in the redwoods, that photo shoot where the light is coming through the trees was so spectacular. It was so beautiful. And I just feel really lucky that I was there at that time to see that. And I did those prints first, and I just was so excited about the imagery that I printed the 24 by 24 inch prints first. And I wasn't exactly sure what I was going to do with them. But then as this exhibition and everything started to take shape, it was the perfect backdrop for the studies. I think there's so much symbolism in it for me with light and trees and I don't know, kind of it's very like moving, and I feel like it moves through space and it moves through time. So it felt like the perfect backdrop for a weaving to go on top of it. And the images that were woven on top of it are landscape photographs from Louisiana and from Sharonton, where the reservation is, Bayou Teche, which is on the reservation, and the Atchafalaya Basin, and which is a lot of like rivers that feed into the bayous. So this is ancestral homeland for Chitimacha. This is our original space. So these photographs, when I get to go out there and I'm taken out on a boat for photo shoots, it's super special. And Tasia and Poopy, I don't know if you are listening right now, but it means everything to me. And the same for Broken Bow, going back to where my grandma was raised and where we still have family. Fred Bray is now looking after family land there. Going back there and doing those photo shoots there on Broken Bow Lake. It's these are really special spaces, and that's what's woven over it. Any of the maps from the library, or in this case, maps from the American Archive, I can't remember how to say that complicated word, in Worcester, those maps, that research that I did in Worcester was very specific to land deeds of Avery Island. Avery Island is where Tabasco is. So I went back and looked at where the land was handed off over and over and over again during colonization. So you have land that was originally, and I don't know, our culture director would know more about this than me, obviously, but Avery Island is in part ancestral homeland to Chitimacha, if not completely. And then it's a plantation, and then it's a Tabasco factory. So all of these like land deeds, any like maps, particularly war maps of, the French owning something, I mean, America, you look at maps from the 1700s, it's just constant movement. It's warfare. The maps are warfare. It's this big lines drawn across land, and then really small writing of what native nation lives where. And then these letters to Queen Anne, a lot of the calligraphy is letters to Queen Anne that then are letters explaining the plantations and moving the people out. And then that happens again, in the 19th century with the Lewis and Clark. Again, this huge expedition to understand where the people are, how to move the people out, and then moving people to Oklahoma. So it's layers and layers of those stories. And so that's what I'm thinking about when I'm putting the images together on Photoshop, printing them, and then layering them again with the weaving.
Well, thank you. Thank you for answering that. We're kind of right at the end. I've been just enjoying everything you've been talking about. It's so interesting to me. I am, exposed to a lot of Indigenous Native culture here in Santa Fe and weaving. And so this practice to involve photography and weaving and your history and your family's history is just it's just kind of a layer cake of amazingness. So thank you so much for talking about it and for sharing it with all of us. I want to thank Bruce for being here, and I want to thank all of you for watching. I'm going to do a very brief plug right now again for the AIPAD gift guide and put it in the chat with a link. If you guys want to check it out, please do. There's some great stuff there, but more importantly, I'd love you to, take a little more time and go to the viewing room for the show and see the catalog and explore this work a little bit more as you have time to do it. So thank you both so much. I appreciate it. AIPAD appreciates it. And we're just so happy to have you here. And thank you all for joining us today. And I think with that, we're going to end the talk.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you all. And we'll hope to see you all soon again. Thank you.